Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamaya Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Okay, wonderful. So we'll go ahead and get started today. Last time, 2 weeks ago, we were talking about verse number 9. So I'll just go ahead and read that and we'll recap a little bit and we'll move forward today. Satsangatve nisangatvam nisangate nirmohatvam nirmohatve nishchalatatvam nishchalatatve jivan muktihi. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrin Karani. Okay, so in the last class, we talked about the power of satsang, how everything actually starts from this act of satsang. Just being in the company of those who are highly empowered empowers us all together. And of course, we talked about the best being in the company of somebody who's established in the path. But if that's not possible, to be in the company of those who are sincerely walking the path, so we can be in the company of each other, or be in the company of books and audio and video, things that keep our mind connected to the higher. Why? Because at the end of the day, our mind is our satsang. The mind is that which is going to be there with us all the time. Whether people are there or people are not there, the mind is that which is with us all the time. So if the mind knows how to focus on something higher and be connected to something higher, then that mind becomes very peaceful. As it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, your mind is your best friend. But at the same time, your mind could be your worst enemy. And what does this satsang do? This attachment to higher company or higher ideals, it makes us detached from the lower. So in verse 9, satsangatve nisangatvam, attaching to the higher makes us detach from the lower. And nisangatve nirmohatvam, being detached now from the lower, what happens is it gives me clarity. Whenever I'm attached to something, whenever I'm attached to something, a person, an experience, a thing, what happens is it takes away my mind, and my mind's not available to think clearly. So when I'm able to detach from the lower, I have clarity. I have a lot of clarity in my thinking. What is an example of this? So, recently there was this college scandal, right? Wherein parents of some people had paid certain schools for admission for their children. And so what happens there is that's a sign of attachment. It's a sign of attachment because attachment blinds us from doing dharma. The minute I'm attached to a person, I'm attached to something, and I want it to happen no matter what, my thinking is not clear. My thinking is not clear, and I'll even do adharma if I need to. So that's why it says here, detachment from the lower provides clarity in thinking. And when there's clarity in thinking, what happens? Nirmohatve nishchalatatvam. Then one is steady. There's a stability. There's a steadiness. Because one is really clear and convinced about their thinking. And what happens after this? Jivan Mukti. One is, of course, liberated while living. So the root cause of liberation while living here says it's satsang. So this verse we have seen last time. So today we move forward and we're going to verse number 10. So Rashmika ji, if you can repeat after me. Vayasi gate ka kama vikaraha. Okay, you can unmute. Give me one moment. I'll let you unmute. All right, let's try that again. Vayasi gate ka kama vikaraha.
Dayasati gate kah kam vikarah.
Shushke nire kah kasaraha.
Tuske nire ka sakasara.
Shrine vitte kah parivaraha.
Shine vitte ka parivaro.
Yate tatve kah samsaraha.
Jnate tatve kah sansara.
Okay, now let's do that together. Vayasi gate kah kama vikaraha. Shushke nire kah kasaraha. Kshine vitte kah parivaraha. Jnate tatve kah samsaraha. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Buddhamati. So in this verse, the tagline is, you don't have a problem, you are the problem. So we don't have problems, we are the problem. What does it say here? Vayasi gate kaha kama vikara. So vayasi you can take here to be maybe immaturity. When immaturity goes, kaha kama vikaraha, where is lust and its play? Where is this uncontrolled lust and its play? It's gone. Shushke nire. Shushke nire means when water is dried up, kaha ka saraha, where is the lake? Kshine vitte, when wealth diminishes. Kaha parivaraha, where is family? Jnate tatve, and when there is knowledge, where is samsara? Kaha samsara. So what this is saying basically is that when the cause has ended, the effect has ended. So when there's no more immaturity in a person, then one is not going out here and there to seek lust and pleasure. When there's no more water, then obviously there can't be a lake. When there is no more money, then what we saw is that people in the family also flee. The minute money is lost, property is lost, everybody goes bye-bye because things are lost. So likewise, when ignorance is lost, when knowledge is gained, there's no more samsara. So let's look at this word first, samsara. Samsara means transmigration, rebirth. Samsara means suffering. And if we look today, we see that so many people are suffering. So many people are suffering in many ways. But have we ever thought about what is the cause of suffering? So some people might feel like, well, it's this virus. It's this virus that's the cause of suffering. Some people might feel like ill health is a cause of suffering. Or some people feel like this weather is a cause of suffering. It's just too cold. Or family is the cause of suffering. But can these things really be the cause of suffering? If this was the cause of suffering, then it would make everybody suffer. If the virus was truly a cause for suffering, then everybody would suffer from it. But not everyone's suffering from it. If poor health was the cause of suffering, then everybody with poor health must be suffering. But that's not the case. There are people in poor health, but they're still fine. They're not suffering. If a family is the cause of suffering, well, that's not the case, because there's people who have family but are not suffering. So what is the cause of suffering? What is that which makes everybody suffer? What is that one thing which makes everyone on this planet, regardless of their age, regardless of their gender, race, whatever, it makes everyone suffer? That thing is called ignorance. That ignorance is that which makes everybody suffer. That is the root cause of suffering. So the root cause of suffering is ignorance. Now, how is ignorance the root cause of suffering? I don't get it. How are they connected? So first, let us see this one by one so that this will be very clear. And once this point is very clear, then we will understand why knowledge is so important. Let us say there is a man walking in the village. He's going to his village. And as he's going back to his home, people come to him and tell him, hey, there's a death in the village. There's a death in the village. So he stops for a moment and he says a prayer. And, he says, okay, he says a prayer. He says, may may their soul rest in peace. May everything be okay. And then he walks a little bit more. Again, more people come to him and they say there's a death in the village. He says, yeah, I know, I heard that there's a death in the village, and I said a prayer and I will go to meet whoever it is. And the villager said, no. The death is in your family. It's your father who died. And this man just broke down completely. He said, my father. And he couldn't move. He couldn't stand still. He fell. So what made him suffer? Did death make him suffer? No, because he heard about death. He heard about death the first time. He did not suffer. But the second time he heard about death, he suffered. Because there was an identification. It is my father who passed away, my mother, my friend who passed away. That causes suffering. So how ignorance leads to suffering? The first point is identification. When we identify with the limited, we will suffer for sure. There's no doubt about that. We learned in Vedanta that our real nature, our true nature is Atman, the self, pure awareness, pure consciousness, pure bliss, existence. That is the real nature. Not this body, not this mind, not this intellect, not this ego. When I identify myself with the body, I take all of the body's problems to be my problems. I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I'm suffering health issues, I'm going through lots of stress, I'm going through lots of pain. All of that we will connect to and we will suffer. And when we identify with the body, everything, every property of the body, we will identify with. This is my house, my car, my family, my children, my this, my that. And to the extent that we identify, that extent we will suffer. The more we identify with the body, the more we will suffer. You're going to say, but what about, I do have kids, I do have a family, I do have all of this. We will see the right attitude to have later on. Then we identify with the mind. so much. So all the mind's problems become our problems. We just said, my mind. When you say my mind, it means you're different from it, right? My glass, it means I'm different from it. It's mine. My mind, I'm different from it. But we identify with the mind's problems. Mind's going here, there, very distracted, very sad, very moody, stressed. We take all of those problems to be our problems. And then our ego, that we take all of the ego's problems to be our problems. He did not call me, or she did not invite me. He did not even think about me, or she didn't do this for me. All of these things are hitting at the ego. So what's happening in life is we are choosing to suffer. We are choosing to suffer. Pain will be there. Pain will be there. That is true. In life, pain will be there. Some sorrow will be there. But to suffer is our option. To be sorrowful is our option. Because to suffer takes identification with the limited. To be sorrowful takes identification with the limited. Nobody denies that there's some sorrow, there's some pain in the world. Nobody denies that. But why do I have to go through it? I don't. And that's exactly what Vedanta says. That suffering, that being sorrowful, that's a choice. It's happening because we are identifying with this limited body, mind, intellect, ego. That's why it's happening. But if we understand our real nature, then where is the question of suffering? Now, what does this also make us do? Because we identify now with the limited, one other thing we do is we take the world outside to be very real. We think that there is so much reality in this world, that everything we see, we hear, really exists. It exists, has solid existence. But let me ask you something. Where does it exist? Where does it exist? Where does this whole world exist? When you go to sleep, where is your experience with the world? It's not there. You only have experience with the world when you are available for it. When you are awake, you have experience of the world. When you are sleeping, you do not have any experience of the world. Which states what? The experience of the world is dependent on your thought. You cannot have any experience of the world without a thought. Okay? So think about this. You cannot have any experience of the world without a thought. So the world's existence, your experience of the world, depends on your thought, on your mind. And therefore, in that mind, it rests in consciousness. So this, why we say this whole world is Maya, why we say it's an illusion, why we say it's an appearance, it's apparent reality, is only solely for this reason, because it doesn't have its own independent existence. Like you take pot and clay. There's a clay pot. Let's say I have a clay pot here. So first of all, if you look at the clay pot, it's just clay, oh clay, oh clay. It's made of clay. Clay all over, it's made of clay. Can you show me this pot without clay? No, you cannot show me the pot without clay. In the same way, this world is just pure consciousness. You show me the world without awareness. Show me the world without any awareness. Show me the world without any thought. You cannot show. So this world, we take it to be so incredibly real and tangible and alive, when really it has no independent existence. It exists within me. And when we take the world to be so tangible and real, alive, and different from us, we run after it ceaselessly. We feel that there are things and people and experiences in the world that can bring us joy, and that there's certain things that can bring us sorrow. So we run to the world, we run away from the world. We start desiring so many objects from the world. And we spend all of our time in pursuit of this world, which is apparent, illusory. And we spend all of our time pursuing the world, setting goals, setting dreams, going after the world. And then we get the results of our actions. But what happens? We get the results. Nobody says we pursue the world, we work hard, we do everything, we reap results, but we're never satisfied. We're never fulfilled by those results. Where again, we get something, we gain something, again, we set out. Okay, I want more. Let's do more. Let's do more. And again, we set out in this world and we go and we pursue and we do and we get results, and we're relaxed for some time. Again, we push ourselves out. This constant pushing ourselves back out into the world to pursue, to hoard, to get, to gain, that's called samsara. Because that brings us in this whole cycle of again going, again coming, again going, again coming. We've completely missed the point. Whatever we're seeking, we already are. Whatever we are seeking, we already are. So that's why it says here, once we know the self, where is samsara? Where is samsara? I'm going to pause here for a moment because there's a question here, right? Let's say something tragic happens to someone close to you. Is being sad and depressed suffering? And if you choose not to suffer, then you are choosing not to be sad and depressed. What does that say about you? And is that possible without repressing feelings? Okay, so this is a very good question because this can happen. So let's say somebody around us is going through something. They're feeling really sad and depressed. And we choose not to suffer and be sad. What does it say about us? It says that we're very smart. Why? Because if we choose not to be, choosing not to suffer doesn't mean we're insensitive. Those are two different things. When we choose not to suffer and to be sad, we maintain a very grounded composure. And in this grounded composure, we can help that person even better. Now, if our friend or our loved one is going down, we're also going down. What happens? They'll probably have to also help us. They'll have to worry about everything else, and then they'll have to worry about us also. It's like if we go to somebody's cremation and somebody's crying and the whole family is suffering, and then we're also there crying and suffering, they're also going to have to look after us. Don't worry, it's okay. But if we become very, very grounded, then we can be strong for them. We can be so strong for them, and we can be that pillar for them, saying, tell me what you need, tell me what I can do, tell me how I can be of help. We can be that pillar. And being that pillar doesn't mean we're insensitive. In fact, it means we're so much more aware and sensitive, because we're forgetting our own, we're not concerned about our suffering. When we're so much concerned about our suffering, our emotions, our feeling, do you think we will be able to be aware of what other people need? No, we won't be. So Vedanta comes from that standpoint of why choose to suffer? And the follow-up question here is that possible? Is choosing to suffer possible without repressing feelings? So the answer here is yes, because Vedanta gives you a very new vision, right? It makes everything very clear that this everything is temporary. Everything is just appearing here. It's appearing here. It's like this movie that keeps going on and on and on. It's there. And what am I? I'm the screen on which this whole movie's play. I'm the screen. The screen is consciousness. I'm the screen in which the whole world is moving about. I'm that awareness in which everything is moving about. Now, knowing when you watch a movie, when you know it's a movie, what happens? Sometimes you still cry. But if you really still know it's a movie, then you can enjoy. You can enjoy the acting. Oh, what great acting. You know, what a great scene. You can enjoy these things. In the same way, when we know that this world is just appearing here, it's just appearing on us, we can also just be very light-hearted about it. There's no feeling to repress, because your feeling is this light-heartedness. We don't actually feel bogged down. Vedanta is not about repression. It's really about knowledge. It's really about knowledge and clarity. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a second. So now, so this is where we are coming from, is that this ignorance is really what makes us suffer. So anytime that we are suffering, anytime, you just know that knowledge has been lost. Knowledge has been lost, because anytime we suffer, we have identified with the limited. We have identified with the body, we have identified with the mind, with the ego, we have identified with these things, and therefore that's why we suffer. So when we know that ignorance is the cause of suffering, and ignorance is that which makes us go out, pursue, makes us feel incomplete. It makes us feel incomplete. It makes us feel like there's so much more we need, there's so much more we want, and there's so much more in the world that we need to pursue. And we keep going and going and going. That is what brings about samsara. Having this knowledge of who we are and the reality or the substratum of the world, that removes samsara completely. This is a tough verse, in the sense that to link every single sorrow to ignorance of the self is not easy, because sometimes we're so bogged down in sorrow. Sometimes we're just going through so much, we cannot think of this knowledge. So at the time of suffering, if we can't think of this knowledge, okay, that's okay. Do whatever we need to do at that time. But slowly, 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 when we are able to sit quietly, when we're able to think back, when we're able to reflect, then really think, why did this suffering happen? Why did it happen? And when we ask ourselves this question, why did I suffer so much? Why did I feel like this so much? The answer will be this. It's because I have identified with either the ego, the body, the mind, the intellect. It's because I have identified with either or. Mostly the ego first, and then the body, mind, intellect. Or it's because I have given so much reality to this world. I have forgotten its apparent existence. I have forgotten that I am that screen amidst the movie. This is why I suffer. This will be the answer. This will be the deepest answer, the most permanent answer. There may be other ways to heal suffering. You could take a walk, you can go through nature, you can, go on vacation. Some people binge watch. Some people take to drinking or smoking, just forget everything. Yeah, that will help for some time. But the sure shot permanent solution to suffering is knowledge. When one has gained this knowledge, then life will not be samsara. And as I said, in answer to the questions that you all had asked, that if people around them are suffering, will they also be bogged down in sorrow and misery? No, no, they will be the pillar. They will be like that lighthouse, like what you all said. They will be the foundation of everything. And this way, they're able to help everyone in need. And they're able to be so sensitive and so alert to what people need, instead of dwelling on their own pain and sorrow. This is the idea of a Vedanta. So it's not only that knowledge, but it's that compassion that comes with it. It's that awareness. It's that love. And it's that feeling of oneness. And there's a very beautiful definition of a saint. I read, who's a saint? A saint is someone, this comes in Ramayana. A saint is someone who regards their problems as very, very petty, but regards your problems like a mountain. That's called a saint. So whatever they're going through, they think it's very petty because they have that knowledge of Vedanta. But that doesn't mean that they'll tell you, oh, your suffering is so petty, what are you doing? You already know the self. No, no, no. They'll see your suffering as a mountain, and they'll work with you to get through that mountain. That is called a saint. So this teaching is not repression. It's not escapism. It's not indifference. It's not apathy. It is knowledge with love. This is what will heal us and get rid of samsara. Okay, now moving on, I will just maybe introduce the next verse. Next verse is a little lighter, so don't worry. Some people might say, or some people might think, I'm not suffering. My life is actually great. I have enough wealth. I have lots of family, lots of people around me. And, I have my youth. I have everything together. So I'm not suffering. So I don't need knowledge. I don't need to think about Vedanta and get into this path of Vedanta. To them, Adi Shankaracharya ji writes this verse. Ma kuru dhana jana yovana garvam.
Ma kuru dhana jana yauvana garva.
Harati nimeshat kalah sarvam.
Harati nimeshat kalah sarvam.
Maya mayamidam akhilam bhutva.
Maya mayamidam akhilam buddhva.
Brahmapadam tvam pravisha veditva.
Brahma padam tvam pravisha viditva.
Ma kuru dhana jana yovana garvam. Harati nimeshat kalah sarvam. Maya mayamidam akhilam bhutva. Brahmapadam tvam pravisha veditva. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Muramate. We'll just see a brief introduction to this verse. He says, Ma Kuru. He says, Ma Kuru means do not take garvam. Do not take pride in what? Dhana, in wealth. Jana, in people, in family, in those around you. Yauvana, in your youth. Don't take pride in that. Why? Harati nimeshat kalaha sarvam. Sarvam, all of them, Harati, they can be taken away by kala. Kala means time, nimeshat. Nimeshat means in a moment, in the blink of an eye, everything can be taken away. Everything can be taken away in a blink of an eye. He says, Maya Mayam, idam akhilam. Idam akhilam. All of this is Maya Mayam. It's full of this illusory nature of Maya. Buddha, having known this, Brahma Padam Tvam Viditva, having realized the state of Brahman, or realized the knowledge of Brahman, Pravisha, enter into it. So take no pride in your possession, in the people in your command, and the youthfulness that you have. Time loots away all of these in a moment. Leaving aside all of this, after knowing their illusory nature, realize the state of Brahman and enter into it. Seek Govinda. What we see with wealth, it sometimes there's a lot of wealth. Sometimes the markets also crash. Sometimes wealth just all goes away. It's just in a moment, it goes. And we never know. These things are unpredictable. The nature of this samsara that we're going through is achintya rachanatmaka, means it's inexplicable. We cannot explain it. Anything can happen at any time. Anything can happen at any time. We were kind of very settled that everything was stable about the virus, and then there's a new variant. Yeah, there's a new variant that came out. So we never know what's happening. It's just unpredictable. And the nature of this samsara is that it's fleeting. It's just something happens and then it goes. It happens and it goes. It happens and it goes. And the nature of the samsara is that you keep digging into it, trying to find meaning. You won't find anything. It's asara. You won't find anything. So it's maya. So wealth can come and it can also go as quickly. Jana, people around us, our family, we already saw. When we have a lot of wealth and property, we have a lot of ability and talent, everyone wants to be around us. But when we lose some of that, nobody wants to be around us. Everybody forgets who we are. And our youth also. We think that our youth will stay, but it will also go. It will also go. So he says, don't take pride in all of this. What is pride and why we shouldn't take pride in this? We will look at next week, because if I start now, I won't be able to complete. So all about pride, we will see next week, and we will move on to the next few verses of Bhaja Govindam. Okay? So I'll just summarize what we did today in a few statements, and then if there are any last questions, we'll get to them. Today we saw in verse number 10, when the cause is removed, the effect is removed. So when the cause of something is removed, the effect is removed. What is the cause of samsara? What is that one thing which brings samsara to everybody, which brings suffering to everybody without question? That is called ignorance. What does that ignorance make us do? Makes us identify with the limited in us, the body, the mind, the intellect, and it makes us take this world to be extremely, incredibly real. And therefore, because of this ignorance, we forget our nature of fullness, of wholeness, and we go after the world of objects and experiences and people and circumstances. We spend our whole lives pursuing that, but not getting fulfilled. And going at it again and again and again, that's called samsara. And the way out of that samsara is through knowledge. And that knowledge brings us a very beautiful attitude towards life, that we are that awareness, that detached onlooker, that everything happens as it is, but we are ever there, unattached, unaffected. That doesn't mean we're insensitive. That doesn't mean we're apathetic. That only means that we understand for ourselves who we really are. And if anybody else is in that samsara, is feeling that way, we are more than available and ready to care, to love, to help. That is what it is. And if somebody says that, well, I'm not going through samsara, I'm not feeling any of these things, so why are you putting me on this path of knowledge? Why are you talking about knowledge? Adi Shankaracharya says, no, 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 no. If you think that you are stable and you have everything that you need, think again. Things will come and things will go. But you should remain ever steady so that no matter what happens, you're fine. You're perfectly fine. That is his message. So I'll pause for a moment